Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 with Dallas and Michael. Dallas, you're here to talk about there's no next thing in retirement today. Tell me what you're talking about.
Thanks, Michael.
Tell us what you're talking about.
Tell the world at large. So the concept here, I was talking to a mate of mine the other day who's, him and his partner have just finished paying off a small debt they have, and we started talking about what the next thing is for them. And it made me realize, like, at most stages of your life, there's the next thing on the horizon. So what I mean is, when you're at school, the end of school is the next thing, and getting out in the workforce, and then you sort of meet someone, and then often then getting married is the next thing, and then you get married, and okay, well, we're saving for a house. And so for these guys, it was the debate of do we? It was sort of there's very clear pathways or progressions throughout your life, and you actually don't really need to spend much time thinking about what you want next, because it's all kind of laid out for you to some degree. So for these guys, it was a discussion of, do we have kids or buy a house? But either way, there was a very clear, there was no option to run away and join the circus. It's like these you're either going to do this or you're going to do this, and both of them are sort of then easy to plan for financially, because you go, we're either going to do this or we're going to do this. We sort of all have a rough idea of what each of those things looks like. And it got me thinking that, then you move throughout your 30s and your 40s, and, the next thing, have kids, and then the kids get to school, and then the next thing is the kids finishing school, and the thing is the kids, getting off your hands, and then the next thing might be you get to your 50s, and then the next thing is retirement, or is semi-retirement, or is something in that progression. And I think we've touched on a few times here, sometimes in those early years of retirement, for people, it can be a hard thing to grasp that, what's the purpose? And I think it's not just that there's not necessarily things that are filling up your day throughout the time. It's also the fact that there's no progression. You've ticked the box. You had to get to this much in retirement savings. You've got there. You're retired, and then the next thing is nothing really. You know what I mean? There are. And again, I feel like this is one of those podcasts. I don't actually have a real thesis to go with here. I just thought it was an interesting concept that for people who are listening to this, you're probably thinking of that, okay, the next thing is retirement. And it's 100% important to plan for and think about and have a target in mind and work towards that. But I think it's also important to go, right, what will happen then? What does life in retirement look like? What will be that next thing throughout our retirement?
Yeah, look, it's obviously a good thing to think about. Never thought about it in the terms that you've put it, I guess there. There are, you do see people in retirement pick up and move. Yeah. And
I actually think there's probably a fair bit of that sort of activity throughout retirement that's almost like people trying to create the next thing. So we've seen this before, where you have people, they'll buy this caravan, and then, that caravan's not quite right, sell that one, buy this camper van, then sell this car and buy this car. And there's a lot of activity happening, and you often I don't know why, it sort of seems like activity for the sake of activity, but I think maybe there's something in that, where it's people move house or move location or move closer to the kids, move further away from the kids, go here, now go there, now. And I think there's some subconscious search for always having to have that progression or next thing to focus on. So I don't know. Any thoughts?
Not
really. I've got some thoughts if you just want me to keep talking.
We got to find an end.
We got to find it. No, I actually know. I've had this debate or this discussion with my parents, actually, as it relates to their retirement, and I sort of think there's two ways to go here, and I won't get started down the road of the ultimate meaninglessness of life, and we're all going to be dead in 100 years anyway, because I do that every day when we have a coffee, and you shake your head at me half the time. But I think the concept is when you've ticked that box and you're in retirement and you go, okay, well, we wanted $80,000 a year in retirement, and Dallas and Michael said that we needed to get to 1.6 million, and we've done that, and we've got it all into an account-based pension. And okay, we can now draw this income stream forever and a day, and we've got that money invested correctly, and we've got it in a tax-effective way, and we've got a drawdown plan for, we're going to do this when markets are down and do this when markets are up and all this sort of thing. There is no logical next thing. So the only two ways to approach that are either, number one, accept it and just go, right, there is no next thing. There is only, I'm 62, I'm 65, I'm going to be retired, and I can just look for the little day-to-day things that I actually want. And the reason I say this is because it seems like there's two camps of my clients who are retired. There are some that are very comfortable and very happy in that way. And like I've got clients now who they kind of go, we get up, we go out, oh yeah, the lawn needs to be mowed, I'll mow the lawn. I'll go and read the paper. I'll sit down and have a cup of tea. And then they've sort of gotten comfortable with the idea that there is no great big thing that I've got to be trying to work towards or anything like that. And so I think those people, it's quite simple. For the people that aren't able to do that or don't want to do that, I think the key here is that you have to go and find your own thing that is, because there's no set pathway. There's no set thing that everyone else around you who's 68 years old is doing. Everyone who's 68 is doing completely different things, and some of them are just having a cup of tea and mowing the lawn and enjoying spending time with the grandkids and doing that. And then others are building weird and wonderful things in their shed, and other people are going and traveling around the world. And I think you've either got to get comfortable with the idea of there not necessarily being a next thing, or you've got to, if you know that you're not going to be comfortable with that, you've actually got to sit down and logically and rationally think, okay, what is the next thing that I'm going to choose that is important to me, or that I think will add some structure to my life. And that, this is where I think you see people joining, the Rotary Club or the Lions Club or something like that, and it's like they're the president of the free world. It's they've created a thing where they go, I think this is important, I think it's meaningful, and I'm going to focus my attention and my energy on this thing. And I think my experience is that I've seen people who are retired in either of those two camps, and they're both happy and enjoy their retirement and have a fulfilling and pleasant life. It's people that get caught, I think, in between the two that really struggle in retirement, where they're not happy just enjoying the day to day and enjoying their life, but they haven't actually really given the thought to what they want that next thing to be, and so they're sort of a bit discontented with all this spare time, and a bit they don't feel like they're achieving anything. They don't feel like they have a purpose, but they're also not doing the work required to go and find that next thing to move on to.
Yeah, look, it's very hard to. It's a hard topic. You're looking at this through the eyes of a 30-something.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this through the eyes of a 40-something person, late 40s.
Yeah.
And our listeners, most of them are still working.
Yeah.
Most of them, are in their 50s, and they by and large, the current and the next thing that they're working on is funding their retirement.
Yeah.
So, look, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what someone is thinking. People find it difficult to verbalize what they're thinking.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the thing. It's not as though those people that and you would have seen the same thing. People that sort of struggle to adjust in those early years of retirement. No one's actually coming out and saying, I'm really struggling with the fact that there is no next thing and that there's no... It's not... and a lot of the time they're not even if they were conscious of that, they probably wouldn't be able to verbalize it, but they may not even be conscious of it as well. It's all sort of subconscious, and it's a tricky thing, because we're not... That's why I think it can be such a disconcerting time, is because it's the first time for a lot of people in 65 years when they don't have the next thing that everyone around them is striving towards or going towards.
So what do we do about this, Dallas?
This is going to be one of those podcasts that just cuts off halfway, and no. I actually think there is some, not so much action steps, but things to think about from today. And again, I think that I find this interesting when you see this with couples, and you would have had the same thing. You often have a couple that they both retire at the same time. One of them immediately is comfortable with the idea of there's no, this is it now. Like, we don't have to work towards anything. All of the striving and the effort and the saving and the this and the that and the, taking care of the kids and getting them off our hands and, doing a good job trying to raise them. We're now at a point where we don't have to have that. And so I think that if you're approaching retirement, and obviously if you're listening to this, whether you're a year out or 10 years out, we're all approaching retirement and the next phase of our life. I think you have to actually really sit down and think about the fact that you are probably in one of these two categories. You're either the sort of person that is going to be comfortable and quite content, not having to have some bigger, higher purpose to strive towards or some structure to their day or something like that. And if you're in that group, that's kind of fine. You know that you will actually enjoy your retirement, and you'll probably find little bits and pieces that you enjoy, and you'll fill your days and you'll be quite happy. If you're listening to this and you think, oh, that's probably not me, and I think most people are self-aware enough to know they're either going to be one or the other. There are a lot of people that we talk to that know that I don't want. I know I'll need something in return. I'll need something to fill my time with. I'll need some structure and some set things to do throughout that time. And it's not even the fact that you have to go and find that thing now. But I think if you're 10 years out from retirement, the couple of things that you can do around planning for that is financially plan for it, but also start to think about, okay, I've probably got a bit more time on my hands now that the kids are off, rather than come home on the weekends and go, oh well, I'll just watch some Netflix or do something like that. It's probably a good phase of your life to go, okay, well, I'm approaching retirement. I know I'm going to want to be pulling out work soon. I know that I'm going to need something to fill that time. Yeah, whether that is volunteering somewhere, or whether that's getting back into some craft that you were really into when you were younger and you didn't have time because you had the kids and work and all that sort of thing. I think there's some planning that you can do around finding something to fill that gap and to fill that void of what work was sort of working towards your retirement was ultimately doing. And I guess that's the other part of it, is that you may well get into retirement and go, the thing that I thought I was going to fill my time with is not actually that enjoyable, or it doesn't really do it for me. If you're that sort of person, you probably will have to go and find the next thing and the next thing and try different things on until you find something that gives you that drive to go and do that, or to structure your day or fill in your time. So there's no necessarily concrete thing to do, but it is just something to think about. And I would say that last 5 years in particular of your retirement is, you are still working full time. You maybe don't have as much spare time, but it's a good time to try different little things on and just try a hobby or try a craft or try volunteering somewhere, or all those sorts of things. It's a phase of your life where there's no set path for this is what you will do to fill your time in retirement, in the same way that I think there is throughout much of your life. It's up to you. If you're the sort of person that if you don't think you're going to be happy with just the day to day, no one else is going to do it for you. No one else is going to go and find those things. So it's a good thing to start thinking about leading up to retirement.
Yeah, I guess you can ask yourself the question. So, of course, we see people that say we want to retire on this date because we plan to jump in the caravan and travel Australia for the first 2 years, or we plan to. I had some other clients that, unfortunately, COVID threw a massive spanner in the works here, because they'd only just left, but their plan was to travel North America and then Europe for the first 5 years of their retirement. So there's a reason why they couldn't work any longer, is because they couldn't do that and work at the same time.
Yep.
And there's other people that work physical jobs.
Yes.
And they get to that stage where they say, okay, well, I can't actually. It's actually getting physically too hard for me to work. And then there's some other people that work, non-physical jobs or knowledge-based jobs.
Yeah.
And they have no plans to travel, and they don't have any distinct plans to do anything. And in some respects, a lot of the times, I have seen people regret retiring because they
didn't have anything to retire to. They were just
they enjoyed what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I guess the happy medium for them for a lot of those people is they actually quite a few of them actually go back into part-time work or consulting and so forth, and they appear to be a lot happier there because they don't want necessarily the 40-hour work week.
Yep.
But they don't want it to go to nothing either.
Yep. No, that's right, and I think that's a good point. Is that sometimes the thing that you can have to fill your, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but the thing that can add some structure to your retirement is a bit of work, and whether that's paid or unpaid, it helps. And I think it definitely eases that transition for those people as well. Is that, like you say, you can go from 5 days a week, you might cut back to 3 days a week, and then over time, by its nature, then you will find a few things. When you got 4 days a week, you got a 4-day weekend every weekend, you're going to find some things that you try on over time that you might then get really into something else, and that might be the next phase, is to then cut back to 2 days a week, 1 day. And I think you're right there, that's something that we've seen work well for our clients. That they say it's a very clear cut. If physically you don't feel that you can work, can continue to work, or you have something that you really want to go and do, like travel, that is stopping you from working. But for a lot of those people that don't, they sort of had a target or have a time frame. I want to retire at 62 or 65, but they don't necessarily have anything that they want to immediately fill that time with. That can be a way to ease that transition as well.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.